It was nearly midnight when the rain began to tap against the windows of Nelson and Murdock. The city outside moaned with the low growl of distant sirens and the occasional crack of thunder rumbling between the towering buildings of Hell's Kitchen. Matt Murdock sat at his desk, unmoving, a cup of cold coffee untouched by his side. His fingers tapped in slow rhythm on the wooden surface, listening, not to the city, not to the rain, but to something deep inside himself. The phone rang. It was sudden, sharp, a sound that somehow felt wrong. Not unexpected, but ill-placed, like it didn't belong to this night. He answered.
Hello?
A woman's voice, shaky, tear-strained, filled the line.
Is this Matt Murdock?
Yes, this is Matt. How can I help you?
I don't know if you can, but I didn't know who else to call. They said you help people, that you're one of the only ones left who actually listens.
Matt leaned forward. Her voice trembled, not just with fear, but exhaustion. He could hear her hand gripping the phone, the static of a cheap receiver pressed too tightly. There were distant sounds behind her, humming lights, the slow thud of a washing machine maybe, a child coughing faintly in another room.
I'll listen.
Matt said softly.
Tell me what's going on.
The woman swallowed hard.
My husband, he was working on that new construction project. The one for the underground prison. Supposed to be a high-security facility under Manhattan. They called it Subblock. Said it was all classified. No press allowed, no tours. He came home the first few weeks looking pale. Said the lights underground flickered too much. Said the air was wrong. Then...
She paused. Matt could hear her breath catch, then break.
Then one night, he didn't come home. That was 5 weeks ago. They told me he quit. Just walked off. But he wouldn't do that. Not without telling me. He left his wallet, his tools, everything.
Matt's brow furrowed.
Have you gone to the police?
Her voice went flat.
They said there's no record of him even working there.
Static cracked briefly over the line. Matt flinched.
Ma'am, are you still there?
They're watching me? I know they are. The first few nights, I saw a black van parked near our apartment. Then my mail started coming opened, but no one believes me. They think I'm having some kind of breakdown, but I know he's still down there.
What's your name?
Matt asked gently.
Jenna Roth.
Okay, Jenna. I believe you, and I'll look into this. But I need a few more details. Do you have the name of the company?
Suddenly, the line snapped. A harsh, clicking silence followed, then a soft hum. Disconnected. Matt's hand tightened around the receiver. He tried calling back, but the number was already void, dead as if it had never existed. No ring, no voicemail. Just silence. And that was how it began. Over the next few days, Matt pursued every lead he could find. He traced construction permits, building codes, city council meetings, anything with the phrase subblock or underground prison. But nearly all the data was restricted, sealed, or simply non-existent. Fog, bureaucratic fog. Even Foggy, his best friend and partner, raised a skeptical brow.
You really think there's some secret prison project under the city, Matt?
Foggy asked, flipping through the thin documents Matt had pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle with missing corners. Matt only nodded.
I can't prove it yet, but someone is going through a lot of trouble to keep it off the books.
That night, Daredevil returned to the streets. He interrogated every informant, smuggler, and scumbag he could corner. Some hadn't heard anything. Others pretended not to. It wasn't until the third night, after a particularly brutal run-in with a weapons dealer in a Queens warehouse, that he got something. A name. Vincent Clem, former contractor, worked excavation and design on a confidential government project 3 months ago. The arms dealer said the guy had vanished into civilian life, running a car repair shop near the docks. Matt didn't wait. He found a garage, small, rusty, flickering neon. One man, working alone, sleeves rolled to the elbows, hands black with oil. Daredevil waited until the man closed up shop for the night, shadowing him as he walked down the wet, narrow street. Then, just before the man reached his car, Matt struck. A sharp yank, a stumble into an alleyway, one hand over the man's mouth, the other pinning him to a graffiti brick wall.
Don't scream.
Matt whispered. Vincent froze.
I'm not here to hurt you.
Daredevil said.
But if you lied to me, I'll know.
I don't know anything.
Vincent croaked.
Whatever they told you, I'm done with that job. I left months ago. I've got a family.
I'm not asking about your family.
Daredevil said coldly.
I'm asking about the prison.
Silence.
You worked on it. You know what it is.
Vincent hesitated, then looked around, trembling.
I can't talk about it.
He said.
They made us sign contracts, not NDAs, something worse. They threatened our families. The things that happened down there.
Daredevil stepped closer.
Jenna Roth, her husband, disappeared. She called me. She's terrified.
At that, Vincent's face went pale. He looked down the alley, like he expected someone to emerge from the shadows.
There were others.
He whispered.
Men who didn't show up for their shifts. One guy just vanished while welding a stairwell. Another was found in a tunnel segment, arms shattered, mouth sewn shut. Nobody told us what happened. The foreman said it was an accident, then made us keep working.
Daredevil's breath slowed.
Why?
I don't know.
Vincent hissed.
There were areas we weren't allowed to access. Red level zones, they called them. No radios, no lights, just torch crews and emergency oxygen. They said we were digging into old infrastructure, but it didn't feel man-made.
Vincent leaned in, eyes wide.
One of the foremen went crazy, started shouting about voices in the vents, said the walls were watching. Then they transferred him. Nobody saw him again.
Daredevil didn't move. He could hear the man's pulse thundering with fear.
I shouldn't have said that.
Vincent mumbled.
Forget this. Just forget this. I've already said too much. They'll come for me.
He broke away, ran into the street. Gone. Back at his apartment, Matt sat in the dark. The rain had stopped, but the city had gone quiet in a strange, unnatural way. The only sound was the quiet ticking of his old wall clock. Something wasn't right. Not just corporate corruption. Not just a dirty prison deal. Something was down there. He took out a map of the city and marked the coordinates he'd forced from Vincent's trembling lips. It pointed to a spot beneath the Lower East Side, a cluster of abandoned maintenance tunnels and flood systems long since walled off from the rest of the subway network. Matt stood, grabbed his gear, and headed out. The alley was nearly invisible, a narrow split between two buildings, where trash bins overflowed and the stink of rot filled the air. According to the coordinates, the entrance should have been here. Matt searched for nearly 10 minutes. Then he found it. An old steel door behind a collapsed dumpster. Painted over a dozen times, padlocked, except the lock had been cut, freshly. Daredevil stepped inside, and the door closed behind him. Click. Silence. He descended a metal staircase into complete darkness. The temperature dropped with every step. The walls felt too damp, too soft. Mold hung heavy in the air, and the further he walked, the less it smelled like decay, and more like something living. Finally, he reached the first tunnel. It was massive, industrial, but unmarked. No signs, no labels, only flickering lights overhead that buzzed faintly with static, even though they weren't turned on. Daredevil walked carefully. His senses reached far, but the walls seemed to swallow sound. His radar felt cloudy, like the space around him shifted, just slightly, as he moved. Then he found the first sign of life. A hard hat. Bloodied. Abandoned next to a heavy iron door. Scraped into the wall beside it, etched with something like nails, were words. "It hears." Matt stood still. And from far below, deep in the concrete veins of this buried monster, he heard something moving. Slow. Wet. Breathing. He took a breath and went deeper. The corridors beneath Manhattan stank of iron, mold, and something else, something wrong. Daredevil moved slowly, sliding his fingers across the walls, trying to stay grounded, but even his radar sense struggled. The tunnels were vast, disorienting, like a maze built by someone who understood how to confuse even the most sensitive perception. Behind every wall, he felt pressure, like something enormous crouched in the concrete just beyond reach, breathing, watching. The deeper he moved into the forgotten structure, the more he became aware of what this was not. This wasn't a prison. It was a trap. The reinforced doors he passed had no cell bars. The ones that were ajar revealed small, cramped rooms with torn restraints, rusted surgical tools, broken stretchers. There were no inmate records, no guards, just the whispers of violence soaked into the walls. And blood. Old blood in streaks across the tiles, dried fingerprints along the door handles, crushed helmets, scratched floors like something had been dragged or fought back. Then the lights flickered. For the first time, they came on, dim and red like submarine lights, and he heard the doors begin to seal behind him. One by one. Clang, clang, clang. A low tone vibrated through the metal, then a voice. Not from a speaker, but from a concealed audio feed embedded in the wall. It was Wilson Fisk.
"Matthew, I always knew your faith would bring you here.
Matt's jaw tightened.
You've been a thorn in my side for too long, so I designed a cathedral for your burial, and I found a fitting beast to play the executioner."
Daredevil heard a new sound now. Chains dragging. Boots, heavy boots, but not clumsy, purposeful, calm, predatory. He turned toward the sound, heart steady, breathing low, muscles ready. And then he felt it. A shape moved at the far end of the hall. Huge, powerfully built, 7 feet tall, draped in a dark tattered jumpsuit stitched across the chest with surgical mesh. His mask was white, but stained with soot and blood. The eyes behind the mask. Dead. And yet burning.
"You know the name,
Fisk said softly.
but you do not know what I made him."
The shape stepped into the light. Michael Myers. But not human anymore. Not just the boogeyman. This version had been changed, twisted in one of Kingpin's black site biotech programs. The same tech used on enforcers, enhanced soldiers, maybe even Bullseye before him. Michael's limbs were longer, bones thickened with reinforced calcium. Synthetic ligaments added spring to his steps. His breathing was slow, his heartbeat terrifyingly absent to Matt's ears. Matt knew then, this wasn't a fight he could win head-on. But the devil of Hell's Kitchen had never run from monsters. He met the beast halfway. Michael came at him with no roar, no sound, just a vicious swing of a fire axe that slammed into the wall and left a crater. Daredevil ducked, rolled, struck low. His billy club cracked across Michael's knee with enough force to shatter bone. But Michael didn't even flinch. A steel-toed boot caught Matt in the ribs and launched him down the hall like a rag doll. He crashed into a table, rolled once, and came up gasping. One rib, maybe two, cracked. His ears rang. Michael was already coming again. Daredevil used the darkness, flipped onto the ceiling pipes, swinging above as the monster lunged. He landed on Michael's back and wrapped his cable line around the thick throat. He pulled. Michael staggered, just slightly, but reached back and grabbed the cable, ripping it apart like twine. He smashed backwards into a wall, crushing Matt between spine and steel. Matt screamed in pain, felt something pop in his shoulder. He barely escaped a follow-up strike. Daredevil threw a flash pellet. Michael shielded his eyes, but it didn't matter. He kept walking through it like the light was just fog. Matt retreated into the vent system. He needed a strategy. This wasn't a man. This was a machine wearing skin. He remembered Fisk's words.
I made him.
If that was true, then somewhere in this prison, there was a control center, or at least a weakness. But every second, Michael was hunting. The halls were endless. Every time Matt tried to gain ground, Michael cornered him. His heavy footfalls were like war drums in the dark, relentless and patient. But Matt learned. He lured Michael into tighter spaces, made him chase into electrical rooms, pipe corridors. He used high-voltage cables. He used steam. He used traps made from rusted scaffolding. Each one slowed Michael down, but never stopped him. Finally, Daredevil found an observation deck above a chamber labeled Gen Mod 1A. Inside was a lab, and files. One flickering terminal still worked. Matt accessed logs written by a terrified scientist. Subject, Michael Myers. Baseline aggression, incalculable. Genetic augmentation successful. Nerve-ending resistance, 92%. Adrenaline manipulation, full override. Response to pain, none. Cognitive regression, complete. Then, final entry. This is not a man. This is a weaponized ghost. If he gets out, none of us will be safe. Matt heard Michael enter the level below. He dropped into the lab as Daredevil stared down from the glass. Their final confrontation was coming. Daredevil prepared. He found a carbon dioxide canister, superheated it, and lured Michael into the chamber with a trail of sound. When Michael entered, Daredevil struck from above, swinging on a chain, driving a metal spike into the beast's neck. Michael roared, not in pain, but anger. He grabbed Matt by the throat and slammed him into the ground again and again. Blood filled Matt's mouth, but he held the detonator. With a gasp, he clicked it. The carbon dioxide canister exploded. Freezing liquid and vapor burst into the room. Michael stumbled, slowed. Matt used the moment to launch his final attack. He pulled a rebar rod from the wall and drove it through Michael's side, then used his entire weight to crack it upward into his chest. Michael staggered, still swinging. But this time, he finally went down. He dropped to one knee, then to both, and with a final breath, collapsed. Smoke rose. Matt stood, swaying. Alive, barely. Matt limped through the tunnels, every bone in his body screaming. He was bleeding, his gear torn, his mind on fire. He reached the sealed entrance. Locked. The entire structure had begun collapsing inward, as if Fisk had built a kill box with no exit. The lights dimmed, the concrete cracked. Matt stood in the dark, alone, bruised, and breathing heavy. He had survived the monster, but he was now trapped beneath the city, in the deepest shadows of Hell's Kitchen, left to die in the grave meant for him.